Gosh, okay, aren't we fancy?
Yes, I decided to record us.
Okay. Sometimes our prompts are verbal, sometimes they're visual, and then we play with words and we generate characters and situations that often don't exist in the real world. And then after a couple of hours together, we have shared memories, we have burped difficult situations, and we have sometimes helped each other hear the good in our own words. So I want to remind you that all the works you're going to hear were written in, I think for this gang, a maximum of 8 minutes. I throw out the prompt, the Zoom goes dark, and we write until the timer goes off. And then we return to read our words. And just because you're not the reader doesn't mean you're not in the hot seat, or I like to call it the seat of opportunity. It's nicer. One of my colleagues calls it that, and she says hot seat is scary. As we're listening to someone's reading, we're writing down the good things that we hear very specifically so that we can share them. Sometimes it might be, I love the way you described the skin on that older woman's hands. Or I think that when you talked about lying in front of the TV on Saturday morning when you were 9, I could picture myself doing the same thing, and you described it so perfectly. But this evening, you're going to get to hear some of their words. So each of these readers, each of our writers, has been offered 5 minutes. I think most of them are going to share 2 pieces with you. Again, sometimes the pieces were written to visual prompts and sometimes oral. I'm going to share the visual prompts with you. So let me ask our writers, our reading writers, give the audience a moment to look at the prompt and think how they would respond to it before you start to read. Okay? So we're going to start with Nathaniel Roach, a Navy vet in Williamsburg, Virginia. He's kind of a neighbor of mine. I so enjoyed his writing to an old island house that was left to ruin as the storm outside screamed, I will not be outdone. He brought wisdom to his words, and his comments about his fellow writers were crisp and helpful. I'm going to let him describe each of his readings. And Daniel, I'm ready to show that visual prompt right now, and then I will be quiet myself. Let's see, where is it? There it is. This is Daniel Luster. I'm sorry, it's Nathaniel Roach. Excuse me. Nathaniel, are you there?
Yeah, you had told me to give him a little bit, so that's what I was doing. Sorry.
Absolutely, we're doing it, and I can't see you, so yes, thank you.
Okay. Time, the greatest equalizer. A young woman holds a photo of herself out during the interview. This was me when I was around your age, young man, Jackie states. I was so beautiful. Why don't you tell me about the photo, Jacob requests as he leans back in his chair and crosses his legs. Pen in hand, he begins to write about her childhood. The most traveled woman in the world, she barely knew where she was born. She loved her life. My kids were the only thing that slowed me down, she stated while chuckling to herself. How many countries have you been to? Jacob asks. She pauses, looks up, and says, Oh, I don't remember. I just know that I love to travel. I love the sights, the sounds. I love the ocean on a cruise ship late at night, the waves gently rapping against the side as I sat and looked at the stars. I enjoyed the crickets at night and the fireflies lighting at nighttime. I live for the desert sands of Dubai and the mountains of Tibet. I am blessed to live my life. I am blessed to have my family. I'm simply blessed. Jackie lets out a bit of a hum. Her memory hadn't been the best lately, but whose would at 106 years old? Only one place left for me to go, Jackie exclaims. Where is that? Home. She pauses with a tear in her eye. I miss my babies. I miss my grandbabies and my great grandbabies. They are the greatest adventure of all. I miss their laugh, their sports, and their dance recitals. I can't wait to be home where my mark passed. My home is where my heart will always be.
Wow. I'm going to take a stab that that was a 10-minute write, maybe, or maybe an 8. And that happened all at once without any editing. That's what we heard. It's fascinating.
Yep.
Nathaniel, do you have another one to share?
I do. Nobody ever suspects me. I make my way through the night without a care in the world. The ground slips beneath me as if on an escalator. The stars blanket the sky and the moon reflects the sun's rays perfectly. I hear animals in the distance, but I know I am the alpha predator. I fear nothing. I can become anything, attack anything, and hide anywhere if I need to. I have been doing this song and dance for a long time. I know where to look for food. I stick close to the tree line. I don't go into the open unless I need to or find the perfect prey. I salivate at the opportunities in front of me. A family of deer stands in front of me. I nestle in and allow them to become used to my presence, my scent. I call upon the night to make me fast in stealth. It obliges and gives me what I need. I'm greedy about my food. I want 2 deer. My family depends on me. I will not let them down. Stories have been told of me and will continue to be told of me. Nobody ever suspects me, the thing they don't believe in. I am the skinwalker, and tonight my family eats well.
Thank you. So we never know. I should have stopped sharing that. I'm sorry. We never know where somebody's going to go. That prompt was, no one ever suspects me. And boy, did we get a prism of responses to that. But Nathaniel's was particularly good. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, I'd like to introduce Pat Durkin, an Army vet from Houston. Pat, a writer, was trying something new, writing in the moment, and I think he really enjoyed it. Whether he was describing the joy of children on a carousel or his favorite aisle in the supermarket, he captured the moment and he shared it with us. I don't know what he's going to read this evening, kind of, but I'm going to put up a prompt and we're going to see what happens. So here is Pat Durkin.
There they are. Ladies and gentlemen, they actually do exist. Now I shall read. They did not ask to be born as banana ducks, but they were, flapping along the sidewalk, carefully to avoid a wardrobe malfunction. You know, the peel going more than halfway down. This lesson was learned after many wardrobe malfunctions. Children laughed and pointed when they saw the banana ducks approaching. Occasionally, to the children's delight, the banana ducks would stop, perform a 360-degree turn, and then resume their direction of travel. As they approached a street crossing, one of the banana ducks beaked. That's banana duck speak for breast. The walk button and waited. Crossing the street in the District of Columbia is risky for humans and regular ducks, but more so for the banana ducks. If they disobey the walk light, they could get run over and squished. When they make it across safely, they'll continue their direction of travel, and usually leaving onlookers shoving banana bread recipes back into their coats. Maybe the next time. So that was that one.
I love it. Thank you. We never know where people are going to go with these things. It's sometimes a little bit scary.
I didn't know what was going with it when I wrote that.
Well, you know, and we talk about that in class, how sometimes you kind of have a little skeleton that you have in your mind and you follow it. And then other times you put the pen down and it just goes and you never know where. So that was where it went for Pat. And then on another evening, we looked at this photo and he's going to share what he wrote to that.
Returning to my childhood home, I stared in disbelief at the building's decay. Attempting to stay dry, I stepped slipping and sliding on the round stones. And when I reached the door's threshold, water came out of my shoes. Pushing the door open, bubbling, peeling paint soiled my hands, followed by a moist, salted, rotted wood air invading my lungs. Turning towards the dark, empty living room, my face appeared in a large cracked mirror. Like the house, I too had grown older. Light peeking through the holes in the stairwell indicated climbing them to visit my childhood bedroom was dangerous. Scanning the empty room, deciding there was nothing here for me, closing the door, I thought, the past belonged to the past. However, it was always with me.
Mm. Thank you. And again, I remind you, these are written in 6, 7, sometimes 8 minutes. There's a lot of creativity and a wonderful, wonderful group that really shared with each other. Thank you, Pat. Now I would like to throw the spotlight on my fellow Allison Smith, a strong writer and an Army vet from Asheville, North Carolina. I have to tell you how unnerving it was to be waiting for the students to arrive on the Zoom and then see Allison S. is in the waiting room when I'm Allison S. So how did I get out there? So, whoa, wait a minute. So Allison wrote cleverly and succinctly in a style all her own. I particularly loved her thank you note to herself. And excuse me a moment, I'm getting a text from someone who wants to read. Wonderful. Okay. I hope she's here. She's coming. Our 5th reader. Thank you. Anyway, Allison wrote a thank you note to herself. That was a prompt one night. That was an interesting prompt. She wrote a beautiful one. This evening, I think she's going to read from 2 of the visual prompts that we have looked at. Again, and I apologize, Nathaniel, give the listeners a chance to look at it and figure out what they might have said before you read, okay? So here comes one you've seen before, and you'll get to see what I mean about the prism of voices and how differently people view things.
All right. So the one I wrote for this is called Banana Duck Duck Goose. The bare feet, webbed toes through wet grass, air rippling with little kid fury, running in circles behind us, eyes closed, waiting to be chosen, to be next. Taps on my shoulder, my head, stuck. And then, arms flailing in the cool breeze, yellow polka-dotted dress billowing, stuck. Calculating if little Billy or my friend Sarah were faster than me, stuck. Giggling because for the moment I was free and I knew that freedom wouldn't last, stuck. Those lazy cartoon Saturdays and Sunday afternoons in the park, stuck. Holding hands with Billy as we roller skated down the hill, daring the wind and gravity to deter us, goose.
So different, such a different perspective, and I love that. Okay, let me just make sure that I know what's going on. Has Tanya Whitney joined us? She tells me that she's going to, and she's told me what she's going to read, but I don't see her in the list. Okay, Allison has a second reading for us, and let me share that visual, which I think is an intriguing one.
The red shoe. Those shoes were $400, Grace. $400. You know we can't afford Louboutins. Where did you even get them? Sheila asked from across the room. Grace plunked her elbows on the edge of the maple table and dropped her head into her hands, her palms just above her eyeballs. They weren't $400. You're overreacting. And what about your phone and your wallet? Where are they? I swear to God, Grace, you are the most ungrateful, irresponsible woman I have ever known. Chill out, Sheila. I'm sure my wallet and phone were just left in the Uber. I'm sure they'll get it back to me. I just have to go get a temporary one. And how exactly do you plan to do that with no money? I'm not stupid. I didn't take my debit card with me, just that credit card with hardly any money on it. Good luck if someone stole it. Do you have your keys? Yes, I have my keys. Why don't you take something and lay down? You're really dysregulated right now. Sheila stood, black designer bag in hand, wearing a black pencil skirt, billowing white silk top and open blazer, and gawked at Grace. Finally, she said, "It's Tuesday. I'm going to work. I don't have time for this." Grace's arms folded down onto the table and she buried her forehead in them. There was no memory of the night before.
Allison, do you remember how much time you had to write that?
I think we had 8 minutes on that one.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, guys. These folks are just dazzling. How much they get. And Pat says, dialogue queen strikes again. You can see the way the class works. The members really support each other and climb in and say what went well. So,
And then I have one more short one.
oh, wonderful, please.
Okay. This one isn't a picture prompt. The prompt to this one was, congratulations, you won the raffle. Your prize is a sky-written note that will be flown over the ocean on a specific day. What are you going to choose to say and what's going to happen? And these characters are actually from my novel, so that was kind of fun. Abby didn't want to enter the raffle, but her little cousin was selling the tickets, so she felt obligated to buy some. Now they had finished the science fair and she sat uncomfortably on the hard metal chair while the organizers droned on about something, thanking someone. When they called Abby's number, she barely noticed. Her cousin elbowed her. "You won," she whispered. Abby squeezed past the knobby knees, "Excuse me," and made her way up to the stage. She knew in her heart what it would be, but hadn't dared to think it into existence. Her fear had manifested in the moment. Those 10 little ticket stubs in the barrel had made their way to the top where one was plucked like a goose feather. How lucky, Abby thought. It was a bright summer day, the kind of day someone would hope it would be, with cartoon clouds sparsely scattered across the sky. The red and white plane was plainly visible against the light blue, the sun opposite the banner so it was well lit, the whole park hearing her secrets spill into the crowd. "I love you, Sarah," it said. Sarah with George on the other side of the picnic table.
You just amaze me. It's the dialogue. And you know those characters well. That's the nice thing. That's one of the nice things about this class. If you are writing anything, the idea of putting the characters into prompts that you didn't think of yourself often lets you know them in different ways. Saturday morning breakfast, the old sofa. You know, we throw a prompt out and suddenly the characters that you know so well, they've got an old sofa and I'm going to have to figure out. So it helps you to know them just a little bit better, which is kind of fun. Thank you, Allison. Well, now I would like to hear from Danielle Luster, who is, and Dara says she loves you, who is an Army vet in Arlington, Virginia, where my daughter lives. Danielle's ability to write a story carried by dialogue is also dazzling. He wrote a piece called Clean Slate about forgiveness in a new and fresh way. And his snippy thank you note had us all in stitches. So I don't know everything he's going to read tonight, but I do know one of them, and it's another take on a visual that you've already seen. So let's see what he did with this.
Sure. Hey guys. This one was the picture and then the prompt was upon my return, I think. Or that's what I anyway. So upon my return, I'll be bringing a structural engineer, painters, roofers, and carpenters. We'll restock the bare cabinets, get caught up on every overdue bill, and invite all the friends over that we stopped talking to. We'll jack up the sagging corner of the house and reinforce it. I'll stop lying and make peace with your sisters. You can get in therapy and start cooking. We'll get everything back in shape and things will be better. Neither of us should ever return here, though. Soon the oceans will rise enough to wash this place away, and we'll both be better off for it.
I'm just dazzled. Completely dazzled by this kind of work. That you can do something like that. And that was a quickie, I think. That was maybe 6 or 7 minutes. That you can get in there and the way your writing happens, take us so thoroughly into the story. It's like a novel in 6 minutes. Gosh, all right.
Thank you.
What else do you want to read?
The next one was to the picture prompt of the truck with all the stuff in the back.
Yes. Let me get that one.
Oh. All right. I'll be on my way soon. I can't even make sense of what I've packed versus what I'm leaving. The things stacked in the back of the truck seem just as trivial as the things left in the apartment. Screw it. They can keep all that stuff and my deposit. I am leaving. The sun is shining and I'm buttoning my shirt. I'm getting on the road later than I had hoped, but there's really no rush. I can't wait to see you. Please, God, just don't let this thing break down.
We never know. We never know where people are going to go with these things. Nice job. So those of you who have not had a chance to experience this kind of class, I would have you recommend it to your friends, recommend it to yourself. We had writers who write all the time. We had writers who kind of want to write. We had some writers the first night who saw what we did and said, I'm not doing that. And we lost them, and that's fine. We ended up with maybe 8 folks who were fairly consistent and really became a supportive salon of writers for each other. So it was a joyful semester for me. I'm just checking one more time to see if our other reader has come in. She wrote me in the middle of class and said, here's what I want to read, and hasn't come. Darn.
I sent her a email and text, so maybe we'll give her
Okay.
a little bit
You
moment.
want to talk a little bit
maybe-
more about ASAP and some of the other offerings?
Sure, she says she's on her way, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll give her a minute. But yeah, I can do my, let me remove my pin. And so I can see everyone. See if she pops in. Wait, she's here.
Oh, yay.
I was just vamping. Okay, here we go. Can make sure she's ready to go, so we don't just put her on the spot.
Tanya, you can come up with your video when you can.
I think she's still connecting to audio.
We missed you. But more to the point, you missed all the others. I had put you last, and here you are. We heard from Nathaniel and from Pat, and then from Allison and from Daniel. And I'm going to go back in and see what you said.
I'm gonna do the prompt to the red shoe on the sidewalk.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't check the time but I've been running behind all day today. So
Dear. Well, I'm going to put up the red high heel and you can have at it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Ellen hurried down the sidewalk, rushing past the empty storefronts. She moved as though the hounds of hell were after her. Her blonde hair flowed freely behind her in the rushing wind. Her coattails flapped like wings as she dashed in and out of the urban stragglers on their way home. Normally, she avoided this part of town, opting to take a longer route to and from work, preferring to be with the movers and shakers of the central business district, even though she worked and lived in the secondary business district. The streets of the CBD were wider and brighter, emitting a light, carefree mood. She had long ago resigned herself to living in a less upscale area. The single lane roads with the drab buildings on top of each other imparted an air of darkness to the inhabitants. Suddenly, Helen fell off balance. Her red stiletto heels were her Trojan horse. An innocent pair of shoes, yet deceptive in their power to cause harm. They hindered her progress, lying in wait to suddenly strike. She looked down to find a heel broken off. Ripping the shoe off her foot, she flung it into the street. Frustration carried it to the sidewalk across the road. She calmly removed the other one, placing it upright on the sidewalk next to her. It was probably for the best. She was unencumbered by the trappings of her Jimmy Choos now. They were her Achilles heel when shopping. She looked around the street and sidewalks, finding no one about to witness her elegant downfall. Even so, those that might happen by would likely ignore her the way people in the city world could. Wrapped in their own world with their eyes focused on the electronic device in their hands, their hearing is dulled by the earbuds inhabiting their oral canals. Helen had yet to achieve that level of sophistication. A transplant to the big city, she was still learning how to be cynical and aloof. Straightening her skirt and blazer, she threw back her shoulders. She raised her head with dignity as she moved down the sidewalk. Her regal movements dared anyone to comment on her downfall or her bare feet. As she sashayed down the street, her eyes swept left and right. She wasn't sure of what she was searching for. Maybe an answer as to why her life was falling apart. Maybe just something tangible to hold on to. She shared a brownstone with 2 other women. They weren't friends, just 3 women willing to share the rent. The job she thought would lead to bigger and better things ended up being a dead end. She couldn't afford to leave it, but she also couldn't afford to stay if she ever wanted to move on to better things in life. There was no upward mobility for her or benefits to look forward to. Suddenly, she stopped on the sidewalk outside the antique store. It sat in the window, staring back at her with its face fixed in a generic expression. The hands didn't move. They remained unmoving in the same position. No sounds were made. It was beautiful, though. The gilded edges of the face reflected the rays of the setting sun. The glass on its face and its body glistened as it did when brand new. The wooden case housing its body was made of mahogany. The tropical wood's deep, rich colors were smooth from years of handling. The antique clock reminded her of days spent at the farm, hours of play in the open fields under the radiant yellow sun, nights spent on a blanket gazing at twinkling stars and a glorious full moon. Carefree days left long ago as she grew into adulthood with dreams of living in the city. Now the city lights overshadowed the stars. She seldom could see the moon because of the tall buildings. Even when the sun was shining, the rays seldom made it to the ground around the glass and concrete structures. So much had changed, far away from the innocent when time stood still. Much like the clock now, no longer keeping time. Her grandmother had a similar clock on her mantle for years. Could she return home? No, she burned those bridges long ago. Plus, she had no reason to return. Her parents were gone. The farm was sold, and she had no siblings or other family there. Maybe if she had spent more time away from the farm or felt more accepted, she would have never chosen to leave her world behind to seek another. She never really had any friends as her free time was spent doing chores. Those she considered acquaintances had long ago drifted away. That life was lost with the decisions she had made. She traded those golden rosy days for long and dim hours in the concrete jungle. In her naivety, she envisioned coming to the city and making her mark right away. She'd get a glamorous job with a high-rise apartment. Reality settled in quickly upon her arrival, however. She looked once more at the clock in the window, then buried her memories deep inside. There wasn't any use in remembering the past or brooding about the future. The bright red heels had been the only light in her recent life, but even they didn't last. She now recognized the shadows of trappings in her new life were as empty as the hills she had left on the sidewalk.
Wow. Now, I must say that I have had Tanya in more than one class, not necessarily ASAP. And when I showed that prompt, she said, "Oh, I already wrote to that one in a different class. Let me expand." So that was not 8 minutes, but what a story, huh? Can we make requests? Allison says. Yeah, they really are amazing. I realized that I did not introduce Tanya, and I apologize. Tanya is an Army vet down in Louisiana, as you could tell. Her ability to capture a scene is such a joy to hear. She wrote a lovely tribute to that one book, and she inhabited a person who was very much unlike her one night when we all did that in a delay at the airport. And she told the story of a woman in a photo that just plucked at our hearts. So I'm glad you had a chance to see her words. I agree, Allison. Tanya's use of the 5 sentences is really unmatched. She really is good. So let me just say that this class will be offered again in the second half of the summer on Thursday evenings over 6 weeks, beginning on July 18th. And I think I can speak for the writers, or maybe they'll speak for themselves when I say that it is not even slightly threatening, that all the work is done in class. There's no homework. And really, it's kind of fun. I sometimes say it's just a big burp. You just get it out and it feels wonderful. So I am so grateful to ASAP for sharing these writers with me and for giving them a chance to stretch their wings in this kind of different way. Thank you, Tara.